Content warning. This is a horror game and not intended for all audience. Please visit our website if you need a specific list of content warnings. This also contains flickering image effects as well as a parallax effect and on rare occasions causes motion sickness in players. If either of these effects cause health issues, you can disable them in game's preferences. Greetings and salutations everyone, I'm Ekamak. This is Let's Play Slay the Princess, the Pristine Cut Edition, except not really because this is the wrap-up. This is the finale, there's no more game to play, there's just discussion to have on the game. I have been thinking about it, and I think I want to tackle this one by one, talking about each version of each of the characters here. So, starting off with our base princess. We really don't get to hear much from the base princess because she's only in the first chapter, which is when we have no idea what's going on, we're just here to do whatever we can. And it's impressive how it does actually show some traits of the shifting mound already at the start. She is what we perceive her to be. The simple act of taking the knife or not changes her so much. And the thing is, it makes me wonder about adding more variations to this starting princess. The idea mainly came about from the stranger, so let's just jump into her briefly. The way that we have 5 different princesses here at the start. One will be the blank princess, which is if you pick the middle staircase. She just has absolutely nothing, total indecision, which is because you picked the center staircase. And then you've got the harsh and the gentle princesses, from taking the harsh stairs or taking the gentle stairs. But then you had 2 extra princesses that you never see in chapter 1. You had a depressed princess, who just seems to have any lack of it. And then you had the slightly maniacal princess who knows that you think she's going to end the world and she relishes in it. And that sort of made me wonder, how would you integrate that into the original march into her place? The idea that I had was that you'd get an extra explore option, which is to search the house and you'd find this window and you'd peer in. The moonlight would cast shadow on the ground, and then the easy thing is that if you choose to hide yourself, then it means that you think that she's a threat. And that changes what she's like when you go down, regardless of whether you take the knife or not. If you choose not to show yourself, then you think that she's a victim and a prisoner, and should be extremely sad and somber about it, and so that would give you the depressed princess. Of course, then there's the question of, okay, but what princesses would all those lead into? But yeah, it's interesting how it doesn't... There are a few aspects to this that are interesting. First of all is that you can actually get many variations of princess from all this. But it's not just a binary choice most of the time. For the prisoner, or for the damsel or the prisoner, yes it is. You have to choose to resist as much as possible so that she can kill you. Remind me to get back to that thought later. But for something like Tower, it's basically any time you attack her, she strikes back and you die. Or rather, you choose to die. For the nightmare, it's trying to keep her locked up as long as possible, but how you get to having her locked up can change. And I suspect that there's a way to go from nightmare to go from locking her up to tower. But so far I haven't experimented enough to see it, and I don't really care enough to go looking. Adversary comes from getting into a fair fight with her. You can't jump straight from release her to stab her in the back, but anytime you hesitate and you don't think that she has a knife, it leads to razor. Anytime you get into a fight with her that she doesn't have a knife, and fight her to the death. That gives you adversary. But apparently witch and beast have quite a bit of variations. Like witch I thought was simply stab her in the back, but actually if she escapes by rushing up the stairs behind you, then that triggers witch. And apparently you can trigger beast simply by not showing any friendliness to her when you go back to get the knife, or rather when you attack her after the narrator locks you in. Yeah, adversary is very clearly get both sides killed. And then simply refuse to go there at all gives you stranger, which is a lot of fun. And then there's the narrator. Like, removing death is kind of important. Like, it would be nice, but death is also very important. People aren't built to last forever. And he does actually come around on it if you go for the happily ever after route. I've heard that if you try to slay the princess, he will actually tell you no, don't. But that's not something I want to try because she already goes through so much in that route. Like he said, he's an echo. He can't perceive the shifting mound like a regular person can, which was needed. But also he just can't see and accept that he's in the wrong. Heck, he even looks down on other versions of himself. Maybe they were just mad, maybe they misunderstood how the construct worked. Who's to say who's right? Except for me, I'm always right. But okay, now let's go into each individual princess. Adversary is fun. I wouldn't have thought it because it's a bit messy, but she is actually a lot of fun. Just going straight in, charging head first and giving her the fight that she wants, that's fun. Fighting her for an eternity, although I don't exactly know which is... That's kind of this one, but there's also a grisly scene, so I won't look at it. But then, if you want to, you can actually talk to her. You can step close, and she will step close in return. And you can talk it out, because she wants you to give her she wants a proper fight. And if your heart isn't in it, then it won't be fun. Heck, you can even say, but what if it's only a free shot? Fine, take the shot. I'll prove to you that I can come back. For some reason this is tied to it's not a fight if you don't strike back, but I guess that's if you say I'm not going to kill you while you're armed. She'll take the knife from you. But yeah, the thing is, it's also a lot of fun if you don't. Contrarian Fury from here is actually a lot of fun. Like, she likes fighting, but she isn't a mindless brute. And there is so much fun to be had from here. Next in line is the Tower, the first princess I actually met in Chapter 2. Because if you remember, while I started on the prisoner route, I chose to walk away into Annihilation. Big lady, very big lady. At first it doesn't seem like there's much to her because she is convinced that she's in the right. She's like the divine aspect of the shifting mound, I guess? A shadow still, maybe, but it's still a divine aspect. But it's interesting how your actions in the first chapter can actually determine what she can do here. And telling her whether she's a goddess or telling her whether she's going to end the world or not can cause problems. But yeah, she just thinks of you as very lowly. A priest, perhaps, or maybe a pet. And yeah, if you do resist, you take her to the Fury, and then you can kill her properly instead of it being mutually assured destruction. Like so. But I find the apotheosis route actually to be rather interesting for her character. Because it actually gives us a look into what her true thoughts are. But not the way that I went there the first time. Maybe I should jump down to these branched paths. So, I have the needle. I feel like the real showing for the adversary is in the adversary chapter or in the adversary Fury. Here it's more she just wants that fight that she hasn't been able to get since. She got too strong, you can't fight her properly. And so you lure her outside and give her a proper fight. I need to get... A skeptic companion is probably something I should have seen. I probably should... Now that I think about it, this should have been something I did. Because Eye of the Needle we have not done very much with. But yeah, lead her outside and then say, do we really need to fight anymore? It immediately ends it. Or you can give her that fight that she's been looking for. And on the outside, you are actually able to keep up and best her. And then there's apotheosis. Giving her what she wants doesn't give us much. Like just succumbing to her immediately. But we do get this. What remnant of the old could possibly left to defy me? Where if you do let her claw her way out into the outside, then that's when Omni Princess will intervene because, as she said, we weren't ready yet. And then she does actually show benevolence by sending you to the outside. Even if I can't make it, I can at least send you, and I'm sorry for not showing you the reverence you showed me. But the interesting part of her character comes from when you are, well, kind of crazy. Because lashing out when she tries to tear through the sides of this construct does actually give you insight to what she is. She felt empty in that cell alone, and finding any sort of purpose was enough to give her an empty sense of pride, and that solidified into brittle but extremely harsh personality, I guess is one way of putting it. So yeah, that was an actually interesting look inside her. I am glad that I came back to do that one. And then there's their branching route, Fury. It's interesting how it's very hard to best her in this way. An angel felled is a demon scorned. So just killing Tower is enough to put you here, but there's no variations of Tower to check out. There are variations of adversary though. So first of all, should you choose to continue fighting after coming here from Tower, then you start utilizing your infinite deaths ability properly. We aren't going to give her a chance to get stronger though, because we keep recreating ourselves here. Until we find that perfect voice to let us land a finishing blow. Which is kind of what Cheated tried in the Razor, but we did it a lot better here because we also got rid of the voices that weren't helping. Cold is very good. Cold is very potent against the Fury. Now that said, you could always come here from Adversary, and should you come here from Adversary with the Contrarian, then his whole gimmick is, oh I don't know, It's not like she's killed us twice before. What worse could she do to us? And even as she's tearing us apart for getting too close, they're able to still keep going because stubborn is will, and contrarian is, who cares about the rules of reality? It is actually one of the more fun times with the contrarian because he's actually weaponizing his I don't care what you think, I'm doing it. That said, if you come here with anyone else, then you're in a bit more trouble because you get unraveled. But the thing is, coming here from adversary with anyone else means that you can outlast her torture. Broken wants to be of help to her. She wants something to hurt, so he will let her hurt him as long as possible. Cold doesn't care because he's always been about detached from the body. Pain isn't it. It was something like in the Spectre, I think. It was that you need to tell yourself that pain doesn't hurt. And he was able to actually put his money where his mouth was here. Outlasting the Fury. No matter how much she hurts us, she isn't going to get what she wants. So then, let's jump over to the Spectre. Speedrun killing her. It's kind of interesting how that first action of trying to attack her will actually change things, change her personality just a smidge, for reasons we'll get into later. We don't get a chance to really talk to the princess in chapter 1 because of this, so we don't actually have much of a personality, pre-established personality, I guess. And I guess the perception is that maybe she's a victim of this, which is why she can be nice, but if we do keep trying to kill her, then she will get aggressive, and that will lead to Wraith. Unfortunately, I don't feel like I have much to say here, but I do feel bad for the Gentle Spectre. And then there's the thing I don't feel bad for at all, the Nightmare. If the princess lives here, slaying her would probably be doing her a favour. I did get this one on my first try, and I chose I don't care. Hang on. Have we really never had a run where we let the Nightmare out? Get to the end. Oh, good gravy, I don't think we have. Oh, that's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? But yeah, Nightmare is definitely the most terrifying of the princesses because she does not take prisoners. She thinks that... You think that there is a very good reason for her to be locked up, which is why she becomes something that is very good to be locked up. Personification of the death aspect, I would say. I mean, heck, you need a voice dedicated to keeping yourself alive to even last long enough to have a conversation, and it would be very easy for her to finish you off. But she's having too much fun with you, and she needs you to escape. Leading to Wraith is a fairly simple process, just stab her. But I did get this on my first time, and seeing what's behind the mask is very unusual. Because it gives us an aspect of the princess trying to live through everything, I guess. Like, she knows what she's doing. She knows that she hurts people from being around. She's tried to live a happy life and it still doesn't work because she's going to outlive it. the worms have found their orifices. It's just really unpleasant. And all the time she's saying, "Let me out." Which leads into moment of clarity. We have all the voices because we've been through this song and dance so many times. The decider keeps forgetting, even though that they're there every time. The narrator is a different one every time. And the thing is, I've actually seen someone make a comparison that this is sort of a reverse deconstructed damsel, where she breaks you down so you cannot resist her, so you cannot escape her will, so you have to help her escape. You can't even take the knife, because it will be lost to you. I imagine that. I don't know how many of these don't have a red text ending option, but I think this might be one of them. And the way that she's broken all the voices is also rather ominous. Yeah, we have not seen the princess at her worst, because we have to forget it to keep ourselves from becoming too traumatized. That said, Wraith isn't much fun either. I think that this part specifically is tied to getting here from Spectre. But yeah, she's gonna make it hurt. Although you do have the option to stop her. You can throw yourself into an infinite pit. You also don't get a knife, which is not pleasant. But now, Princess and the Dragon. This is something added by the Pristine Cut Edition. And the thing is, there were 3 new chapters added by Pristine Cut. And they were all said to be for princesses that didn't get enough time to flesh out their story, so it gives them more. You'd think that with how the Spectre is so short and uninvolved, this would have somehow been part for her. But no, this is actually an expansion to the Chapter 1 princesses, because you do get a harsh or a gentle princess. I mean, she decks you in the face after you stab her. Of course this is harsh princess. And it's interesting how that perspective also changes. But it's not just expanding on them. You get to experience what it's like to be a voice, because all you can do is talk to her. You don't have any agency. You can influence her, but you can't talk to her. Meanwhile, we see what happens if the voices are left to their own devices, and opportunists cannot be trusted still. But anyway, as I was saying, the princess that we have also influences them, because Opportunist has a very different reaction between the gentle and the harsh princess, because harsh princess will say, "Yeah, letting me know means that I will be able to make you pay for it," and he goes, I'm a bit overcommitted, so I'll just assume you're bluffing. You're probably bluffing. Whereas he just goes straight for the kill with gentle princess, and he's not very good at it, is he? This is a fan favourite. I remember that it was part of what people were talking about when I first saw it. I don't know whether it's the best route, but it's definitely an interesting perspective, and that is exactly what this game is about. There are no wrong choices, just different perspectives. I'd say the only problem I have is that it's very unintuitive to think that slay yourself might lead to something like this. Like, it makes sense when you know it and you look at the hint, but without knowing it and looking at the hint, how are you supposed to? I also like that they change up the art style completely to make it clear that looking through the print... Actually, that is one of the big highlights. You can see what it's like to be the princess waiting in the basement when you've got no idea what's actually when the other person hasn't decided what you'll like yet. But yeah, they changed the art style to show that she is a very different being to you. So then, for our first route that has no Chapter 3, we have the Razor. She's fun. Like, it's just so entertaining how single-minded she is on getting at you. It's entertaining how Cheated is sure she's gonna stab him, which is why she's gonna stab him, because she's a creature of perception, haven't you heard? But she also has so many different ways of getting at you. The dialogue that you can get here is fantastic, but unfortunately it also is something you can exhaust. You can run out of dialogue, unfortunately. Because she just decides talking is boring and goes straight to stabbing you. But should you get close, no matter what you do, she's going to stab you anyway. If you try to stab her from the front, she stabs you from down low. And it doesn't really last long. But then you get to the woods, and Cheated is done with it, which I think is a reference to the writers because they were tired of writing the same lines over and over, so they looked for ways to cut out the woods whenever they could. These aren't the woods. And then when you get to here, depending on whether you took the knife or not, changes which Chapter 3 you're going to get in this chapter. If you did take the knife, then Cheated will take the knife immediately. If you didn't take the knife, Cheated will take the knife immediately. And then Contrarian will throw it out the window. And then you just have this fun, where there are so many options and every option will get you stabbed, but you don't end. Instead you get a new voice immediately. And I mean, Split Razor showed how much fun that was, right? Especially flirt with the princess. That's a lot of fun. I like you too. Still gonna stab you, but now we can have a romantic subtext to the stabbing. Unfortunately, not all of the images are kept. There's no stab yourself option in here, which is a shame because that one is actually a lot of fun. Oh, are you gonna stab yourself? Neat! And then she just becomes a princess made out of swords. In Chapter 4, when she does actually finally chase you out of the building. Everyone has opinions on this, which is why Long Quiet chooses to silence them. And then either you focus on fighting her if you have the knife, or you focus on breaking her if you don't. She's just a heart. And then we look at the beast. This is actually one of those ones where there aren't really good options for you, because the princess is such a hard counter to the voice that you have. She's the beast, you're the hunted. She will hunt you. And the hunted just doesn't have any ideas. If she can eat you, then that leads to the wild. But if she can't, it leads to her den. Like, at this point, she is still sapient. What great big eyes you have! There's a Little Red Riding Hood reference and a half. If there's one problem that I have, it's that I was misinformed about how there's an achievement here for you can't keep this up forever, but then they changed that. When they went to Pristine Cut, it was replaced with a different achievement, but unfortunately that I didn't know at the time, so I spent a few too many episodes trying to get it. Huh. Oh well. In the same... like, it's... She really does think she deserves it to... This is exactly what she needs to do, and unfortunately Hunted thinks, I don't want her to do this, but she is going to do it. And who you bring to the den is interesting. If you bring Skeptic, then that's because you wanted to try and figure out a way out of this with her. You didn't fight back. And he does actually have a rather good scene where if you go back to try and help her, then the narrator collapses the ceiling, but she helps you back. Heck, she could leave you to be buried, and I don't know whether she's sentient enough to know that the cabin won't let her leave, but she comes back to help you anyway. Meanwhile, if you bring Stubborn, I don't know what he's like if you choose to lure her out of the den, but you can choose to fight her to death or you can choose to go for the consumption route, both of them which are very nasty. In fact, the hero really doesn't like it. Hunted and Stubborn are fine because Hunted is our instinct, and to consume is to fight back against what she's doing to us. Whereas Stubborn just wants to win, he wants to beat her. I imagine Skeptic wouldn't have been able to do that. This is her at her most primal. Meanwhile, we have the hilarity of the witch. Unfortunately, getting to the witch does mean stabbing her in the back, which is why it's opportunist. I think it's specifically show kindness to her, but then betray her, either by going back for the knife or by trying to stab her at the last second. The thing is, the witch also has some fantastic expressions. It's great. Unfortunately, the fact is that the trust has been broken and there's nothing we can do in this chapter to get it back. So it will always end in violence here. For example, if you choose to fight her, then it gives her enough time to summon the vines to... It's enough for her to summon the vines to start causing problems and kill us. Just showing up and then making a run for it does the same thing. Although we don't have any images of that there. As the narrator said, well, if both sides fight dirty, then no one wins, do they? Letting her walk up is dangerous, because if she goes first... then you go first, then she attacks you while your back is turned and brings you to the bottom of the stairs. It's not fun. And unfortunately, as it was, there's no other way out, because if we send her up first, then she gets the door and locks us in. And has no intent on letting us out. But the expressions are great, so it's all fine there. And then there's her unique route, which is where you try to mend that broken trust by giving her the dagger. It's not going to work, but it is going to put us onto a new chapter 3. So let's look at that, the Thorn. It is still possible to betray her at this point. I'm not going to do that, so we're not going to see it. But the point is that you do try to fix it up. Yes, we betrayed each other. We have to get over that or we're both stuck here forever. And even these terrible vines with their thorns pointing downwards aren't enough to keep you in. She's been hurt, but that doesn't mean it's irreversible. Oh yes, and then there's also Kiss the Girl. Now, the fused route is actually not that divisive. The most different thing you get is the voices you bring here. I almost want to say you could bring Contrarian here if you come here from the Beast, because you choose to stab yourself after being eaten, but there's not enough time to go experimenting. The first 2 times I did this, I chose to side with the princess. The Curious Heart. Find a way to break out of this construct together, which is rather similar to the apathesis. Apathesis? Whatever. But then it turns out that there is an alternate version to this. If you choose to break yourself apart from her, then you find the Wounded Wild. But it doesn't mean that you want to kill her, it just means that you don't want to be fused together like this. It's wrong. Even after everything, even after you crushed us to death with roots, or after you summoned it, or after you ate and digested us. There's not too much to say about it, but it does have an advantage. I got it on my first run, and she does actually make note of what the narrator is like. Similar to how she was able to figure it out in Spectre or Tower. And now another solo route, the Stranger. This is being Contrarian, so it's a lot of fun. It's Contrarian all on his own though, so it means that left unchecked, he can do some rather unfortunate things to a being of perception. I'm pretty sure that it's been said somewhere that each voice is worst in his own route. I think it's more of a case-by-case basis though, but definitely Contrarian unchecked is a problem. I also like the fact that the princess will actually take note of it if this is your first one and apologize because you probably weren't supposed to see all this. But that said, we have a little bit more. The Prisoner. This is what I would have gotten first, but I was kind of in a... I don't want to go near this. If he's going to take over me, then he's probably going to take over me again. Let's just go somewhere else. So that was sort of hanging throughout that first run. I was thinking, okay, but what would it have been like? And so in the end, I did a second run. The first thing I did was come back here so I could see what it was like. And I've said it before, I've had it said to me before, I'll say it again, this is a fantastic expression. Just so done with this. It's because last time she cut off her hand and we think, yeah, that wouldn't stop her. So I think it does actually tie back to the perception. We think, yeah, she cut off her hand and it didn't stop her, so why would she be any better chained up this time? This time she is better chained up because now it's around her neck and it's a lot harder to survive having that cut off. It also shows us that, well, yeah, you get the manacle around your neck and you eventually outweight everything. Because unlike everything else, you and her don't need to survive this way. Time is not going to kill you. I'm sure it bought the outside world a few centuries. Meanwhile, for a more proactive approach, she can take the knife in one of the most unpleasant and grisly moments. And then you can take her head outside. And oops, it turns out that she didn't need that whole body in order to talk to us. She didn't need that body, it was overstated. This is basically tying back to Adversary, isn't it? Where Adversary can believe that the princess can't die, and so she can't die. the skeptic believes she has a plan, and so she has a plan. And taking the head will help us out. Now the interesting thing is that if she does get the knife, and it's not because you killed her, she just got the knife, then you leave her head behind, it leads to Cage. That wasn't always the case. In Pristine Cut Original, I've heard, this would just lead to the Grey. Specifically the Drowned Grey. But people didn't like it because it was her blaming you for not being able to understand her plan. And I guess that's why they added a variation of the prisoner for the cage, but let's just go back to that. She is still Harsh Princess. She can still fight if you attack her. And she can actually do a pretty good job of nearly killing you. Also points to this. The princess will end the world if you don't stop her. This is an immutable truth. I don't know how much evidence this is supposed to be, but it was the best that the narrator could come up with on a short notice, I guess. He can manipulate perception a little bit after all. But okay, let's look at the cage. I'm annoyed that the first time I came here, it was with a voice that cannot break free of the system, which meant that I spent a lot of time trying to get through this with the knife. I have to wonder what she's planning on doing here, but unfortunately we don't get the chance because our other self is going to stab her. The bodies get into a fight while we just sit there and watch. I don't like it because in a choices matter, like this game has made choices matter so much, and yet this is the one time where we can't. Meanwhile, if you bring the people that won't agree with if you meet the people that won't agree with Skeptic's thoughts on keeping the knife, you do have a way out. Broken wants to talk to her because he hurts and he's sure that she's hurting too. Cheated hates how that he's been locked out of everything and he just wants that tiny bit of agency back. So we can make it to the top with her strength. All of that just to take it all away. You're cold. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just drop her head once you get to the top, which is awful. Although I think actually it's not back into the cell. I think you take it to the edge and drop her into the ravine. Still awful. Don't do that. It does show, though, that it continues to be the worst voice. Like, Skeptic cannot break this on his system on its own. It's almost like we've perceived it that this isn't a system that we can break. And indeed, it's a system we can't break with logic alone. We need something else. We need to make an emotional decision rather than a rational one. And then we have Damsel, which is basically, she couldn't possibly hurt anyone. Not taking the knife and talking her through, letting her loose and letting her kill us. That is all things that would lead to this sort of princess. But she didn't have an alternate route. In fact, I don't know whether it was... She didn't have her own unique route, she just shared it with the Grey. And it's... Actually, wait. Feelings buried like knives in hearts. And yeah, it's interesting that she doesn't think that we're to blame. Which is probably thanks... Well, I don't know whether I'd say thanks to Smitten because it's sort of half-half. Smitten thinks that we're a horrible person that needs to suffer for what we've done. But at the same time, he also thinks that she's innocent, so she remains innocent. Innocent, yet extremely dangerous because she will burn us to death because she assumes hey, it's this place that hurt us. She will think, hey, it's this place that hurt us. We should get rid of it. But we're still in here, so it's not going to be fun. Meanwhile, as I was saying, they clearly decided to add an extra aspect to it, which is where the change starts. It's all the perception. Maybe we could just stay here together. I don't think I'd be fine with that. And that sets off Smitten, where he decides, okay, I just need to take control of the situation. I can make this work. It'll be a happily ever after. And oh boy, this was a powerful one. Because there's clearly an attempt to make this work. They set up lavish feasts, they set up fun board games, but the fact is that we keep doing it over and over until it loses all its luster. Eternity isn't a nice thing. Eventually you have to let go. And the thing is, the narrator accepts that what he wants isn't going to work. See through her seated eyes at the end of everything, oh dear. But yeah, with all that said, I need to backtrack to here again because I just when I got to Prisoner in Grey, I remembered what I was thinking. So the thing that I was thinking was that one thing that always slightly bugged me was that when we choose to resist twice after the narrator sets us against her in Chapter 1, she would always jump straight to stabbing. And while, yeah, it does sort of make sense in this situation, I also had this thought of, you could just turn and throw it out the window, then no one would be able to hurt each other. And it turns out that it must have been a common thought because that's exactly what happens here. She chucks the knife out the window after she gets it. So yeah, that was a fun thought. But yeah, getting to Damsel Grey, you're an awful person, and I feel awful person for doing that. At least Prisoner was trying to kill us. And so finally, Omni Princess. The unfortunate thing is that she has so many perspectives all at once. You just can't get through to her, you can't change her mind. She's trying to change your mind, but you can't change hers. You can destroy her if you feel like it, but it won't end properly. She isn't death, but she does contain that in her multitudes, as she said. We know which multitude it is, it's Nightmare. The thing is, life without change and life without death, it's kind of an empty life. But what narrator did was he personified death. And now it has a god complex, which means that he's actually made the situation much worse, because either outside world has to keep going without death, a total nihilistic life where nothing ever happens right, or we let her out and she starts killing indiscriminately. She ends the universe, starts another, then ends that one, starts another. It's just going to be a whirlwind of life and death, so he's actually made it much worse, and there's nothing we can do to change that. I like the quiet endings, although I still am fine with my first run being slay yourself and start over from scratch. Because isn't that exactly what we're doing this whole game? We're continually dying and starting over from scratch. Leaving with the princess is actually nice. Even leaving with the stranger is nice. And she's just very upset that we'd offer grace after utterly crushing her. It's like you think I'm in the wrong. I'm not in the wrong! If anything, that's Tower, where Tower refuses to accept anything wrong until she's actually destroyed. And here we haven't destroyed her, we've just beaten her down a lot. But yeah, that's it. I definitely have ideas for my own spin on this, but it doesn't for my own extra chapters and such, but I'm not going to look for commission artists for stuff like that. I'm just fine with keeping those thoughts to myself. Black Tabby Games has made another game. I wasn't originally going to look at it, but I have seen people say, if you like Slay the Princess, then you'll like this, so I guess I will actually have to have a look at it sometime, but not immediately. It's been over 70 episodes, I would like to play something new, please. But either way, until next time guys, take care, and wait, no. There's one more thing. Okay, we're done. Till next time guys, take care. I'll see you all around.